Hi everyone, it's Angel with SCT Life, and I'm here to talk about this book, The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. The book was written in 1988, but I was reading something else. I think it was a list of like the books that helped people the most along their spiritual journey kind of list, and this book was on it and I'd never heard of it, and so hunted it down, bought it, read it. Incredible book, incredible story. It was written in 1988, I think I mentioned that, and translated into over 80 languages. It basically focuses on 4 things. The fact that each one of us has a personal legend or a purpose. And I'm really feeling called to narrow mine down. So this was a good find. He also speaks about the language of the world, the soul of the world. And I think those 2 are very important right now because a lot of people are feeling this new kind of energy in the world, like something's changing, shifting, and I think maybe more of us are realizing that we're kind of seeing the worst in people right now, and we're missing seeing the best in people, in society, whether we're in a store trying to get customer service, or we're on a plane trying to go from point A to point B, or even in church. Things just feel off. They feel darker. And I think we're not only seeing pushback, on that right now, but I also think it's deeper. It's deeper than that. So in this book, it talks about a sheep herder, and he's a young man. And he ends up at a fortune teller, and the fortune teller tells him to travel to the pyramids in Egypt to look for hidden treasure. And that starts him on a journey that totally changes his trajectory in life. And the next thing that happens is he runs across the king of Salem, and he kind of talks with him and encourages him to pursue his vision for his life. And next he runs into a crystal merchant, and the crystal merchant shares the one thing that he always wanted to do with his life, and he's older. He's not elderly, and he just seems resolved that he's never going to do it. And the sheep herder starts to work in his store. He's listening, he's observing, he's learning, and there's plethora of ideas start coming to him. And he asks the owner, can we implement these? And some of them were easy, easy to approve. And sure, of course, yes. And it would bring in more buyers, more customers. And so some of them, his ideas, I'm not sure. Well, let's just step a toe in, see how it goes, go from there. They do, and it's amazing. So customers build again. And it just is this remarkable change from a little bitty mom and pop shop, we've all been in them, versus going somewhere that just, everywhere you look, they have taken advantage of every square foot. Look down, you see something. You look up, you see something. And it's just visually appealing to the eyes, and you get excited. You're like, I'm gonna find something in here. And usually you do. And so this crystal merchant just had this explosion of wealth and selling so much crystal. Then they decided, we're going to travel to Mecca. We're going. And that kind of helped him concrete his resolve to follow his dreams. And so the next thing that happens is he runs into an Englishman, and this Englishman already has his goal for his journey. He wants to find the alchemist. And the sheep herder / crystal salesman, he doesn't know what an alchemist is. And so they kind of butt heads, and they separate, and then they come back together again, and they have interesting conversations. And the Englishman is more intellectual, but the sheep herder has great knowledge. And so at one point he says, can I read your books? Well, these are my favorite books, he says. I know. I'll treat them with respect. Can I read them? And he says, sure. And so he does. He takes his time and he reads them, and he learns and he asks questions, but it just hasn't bitten. It hasn't hooked him. And so he gives the books back, and he's like, thank you very much. And he's like, what do you think? And he's like, I don't know. If these are the best of the best in this subject, it didn't catch me. And the Englishman says, okay. But I still am looking for the alchemist. He says, okay, I gotcha. So along their way, they're going through the desert, and they are facing danger together, and because they're in the same caravan. And what that does, them facing danger, is that they learned to cut away the unnecessary in life. Like, what is really important to you? And if it's not really important to you, then cut it away. You do not have to supply energy or a lifeline to something that you have deemed not necessary. And then the sheep herder meets Fatima, and he falls in love, and he knows in his heart of hearts, he knows that this is the love of his life. This is the one. And he talked to other people about her, and he learned some things. And he starts showing up where he knows that she's going to be every day. And so she starts noticing that he's there, and they start conversing, and before you know it, he's trying to decide, does he stay? Does he complete his goal? So he finds the love of his life, and now he has to decide his dedication. Is his dedication to him? Whereupon he would have to leave. That's what the men of the desert did. They left, they went out, they journeyed, they had all kinds of adventures, and then they would come back, and the wives would stay and take care of the everyday and the children and the rest of everything. And they weren't angry with their husbands. This is what the men of the desert did. And so he had to decide, am I going to be a man of the desert? Or am I going to stay here and start my life with the love of my life? And so he decides and puts his dedication into getting to the pyramids of Egypt, and that anchors his dedication. Whereupon, along this journey, he meets the alchemist. And the Englishman had already run across the alchemist, and the alchemist knew that the Englishman's journey was way different than this sheep herder's. And so the alchemist actually brings him along, and they start on this journey in the desert together. And this is where the sheep herder discovers his strengths, his gifts, his powers. And there's a challenge. And he has to learn, and he has to stretch, and he is uncomfortable, and he has to grow. And that's when he realizes his destiny. And so, in truth, this book makes you realize that fear is an illusion. What is true, what is truth, will absolutely endure. That as humans, we should change things up. We get in patterns and we don't notice, but the effect of those patterns is that your walls start closing in and your world becomes small. So change things up. Go a different way. See things from a different perspective. Concentrate on the present. If it's in the past, leave it there. That's where it belongs. And if we worry about the future, what is the purpose? What we can do is decide on our present. What we're seeing, what we're doing, what we're feeling in the present. And then just realize that we are all connected. and that everyone's successes, each and every one of us, and what are we at now? 8 million population of the world. We are all connected, even though we seem like we're on different continents and there are different things that divide us. But never forget that we are all connected. And when one of us has a success, small or large, it has a ripple effect on the consciousness. And so think about that. 8 million possibilities every day of successes. So, how many successes are had in a day? Lots, tons. And it increases our vibration, the collective's vibration, and it increases. Make a decision. Sometimes we draw things out so long, crazy long, ridiculously long, because we're afraid of this. We're afraid of a reaction. We're afraid of whatever, fill in the blank. But fence sitting on the fence, it's wasteful. Make a decision. Learn. Live unrealistic is one of the themes in the book. Live unrealistic. How many times has somebody said that to you? Not very often. We're always told, be realistic. No. Change your perspective. Allow yourself to believe that all things are possible. All things are possible. I don't know who starts turning that off in us as humans, but shame on them. All things are possible. Be and live unrealistically. That's how some of the greatest inventions have come into this world. By people who did not take no for an answer, that people did not take whatever resistance people were feeding them at the time. Absolutely not. I'm doing this. And they do. Always get back up. Focus on you. Another theme. Focus on you. Maybe be a little bit selfish. It's okay. Not the thoughts or the influence of others. We are in such a society of me. What do you do? Oh, I'm an influencer. Really? You're just accepting money for the last offer that came through into your inbox. Oh, well, I've used this for such and such length of time. No, you haven't. When you let the influence of others change your course, everybody loses, because you realize that they have an agenda. That's why they influenced you. But you let them influence you. What does that say about you? And lastly, the last theme of the book. Take action. Do your due diligence. Meditate on it. Ask God for a sign. And then pull the trigger. Take action. And what's the consequence of that? Learning. And I will forever be a student of life, always. And I look forward to it. Is it hard when something happens that you don't really want to? Of course. Of course. But facing that is important, just like the winds are. And as I close, I'd just like to say this. After reading these books and thinking about all these things, these themes, his examples, as humans, we can discover our personal legend, our purpose to achieve success, be content, and live happily, which again will raise the collective's good energy, or those without courage end up living an empty life, feeling dissatisfied and frustrated. And I always want to push myself to discover and be content and to live happily. And I look forward to reading this book again. I'm going to read it probably many times. And so I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you will get a copy. I hope you will read it. Check it out at the library. However, because it's interesting, it's one of those books that I've read that will probably stay with me forever. And other than that, just take a deep breath in and allow yourself to have a wonderful day. The sun is shining. If you happen to be in Georgia, we've got kind of a partly cloudy day and no rain at the time, but I think they're calling for it this afternoon. But find your happiness, make decisions, pull the trigger, learn. We're all in this experiment of life, and we should be loving every minute of it. That's all for today, guys. And I think I'll be doing a card next. Who knows? I also have some planting to do, so that might be in the next video also. Know that I love you. And I am sending out all kinds of positivity and love and light. Until next time, peace.